All right, well, hi again, and welcome to this week's Alertus Power Lunch, configuring alert profiles and device groups for integrations. My name is Brooke, and I'm a training specialist here at Alertus, and today we're joined by Sarah, another training specialist here, who will be leading the session. So we will be walking you through creating and managing alert profile settings to configure desired Alertus endpoint behavior for various alert scenarios, including emergencies and all clear alerts. We'll also show you how to create groups for your alert devices to effectively target your alert delivery, even when activating from a third-party system like Everbridge or Rave. So this is an interactive session, so please feel free to ask any questions using the Q&A feature, and also be aware that the session is being recorded for training purposes. All right, so without further introduction, I'll throw it over to Sarah.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you, Brooke. I will go ahead and share my screen so we can take a look at my Alertus console here. I did first want to start by just doing a quick introduction of what alert profiles are and what groups are. So I wanted to show you each of those things as I do send out an activation from my Alertus console here. So I'm just going to start by going into this custom activation page. And at the top here, the first step is just composing whatever alert message that you'd like to send out. Just as an example, I am going to pull in an alert for a fire evacuation order. Let's pretend there is a fire in building 1, and I'm sending out an alert to let people know to evacuate. Once I have my message composed, in the Alertus system here, you can set a duration and a priority value for the alert. I think in this example of a fire evacuation, 30 minutes at the highest priority looks good. And then the next section here is where we'll start by talking through what alert profiles are. Essentially, alert profiles are a collection of alert services that determine how you're sending the alert out and what device settings that you're using. So in this Alertus console here, I do have the ability to pick these alert services individually. So for example, if I want to send the alert out to alert beacons, I could pick my alert beacon alert service. If I want to send the alert to desktops, I would pick a desktop alert service. And as you can see here, I have a bunch of different desktop alert services that all correspond with the different desktop settings I might want to use. Like here's my default full screen takeover for emergencies. I also have one that's green for my all clear alerts. I have one that's just a small orange ticker going across the screen, so I could pick whatever desktop settings I would want to use. And I can continue by pulling in an alert service for any other types of devices or endpoints that I wanted to target. And again, this is how I specify what settings I want to use for those devices. But if you don't want to have to pick the alert services individually, I could instead come to this drop down here to pull in an alert profile. And these alert profiles are just saved collections of alert services that you can use for different scenarios. So for example, I have an emergency alert profile saved on my system where I have these alert services in that profile. So once I select it, it just automatically pulls in all of those alert services in my emergency profile. So I can see I'm sending to desktops with that default full screen takeover. I'm also sending to alert beacons with these settings. I can pick the visual alert type that I want. That would be the LED pattern. And I can also set the volume for the alert beacons as well. And then I'm also sending to my text-to-speech speakers with my default settings that I use for emergency alerts. And if you are activating an alert from a third-party system like Everbridge or Rave, those systems are not able to see the individual alert services in your Alertus system, but they can see your alert profiles. So if you're activating from Everbridge, for example, when you select Alertus as a delivery method, you'll be presented with all of these different alert profiles you have built out in your Alertus system, so you can pick from any of those to determine what device settings you'll use. And we'll go into how to set up those alert profiles after we send this activation. But once I have my device settings selected, the final step here is choosing recipients. So I could check all. That would activate all of the desktops, all of the alert beacons, and all of the text-to-speech devices on my system. From the Alertus console, I could also just pick individual units if I wanted to target just a few specific devices. But I do also have the ability here to select groups of devices. So for example, since this is for a fire evacuation in building one, it would probably make sense for me to pick my building one group. So it would activate just these devices that are in building one, and you can pick multiple groups as needed. And again, if you're activating from a third-party integration like Everbridge or Rave, you'll also be able to select from your Alertus groups, and that will determine which devices you're sending the activation to. So the alert profile is how you're sending it, and the recipients are who you're sending it to. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit continue to send this alert out. I'm using that emergency alert profile to send to my building one group. So I'm going to go ahead and click send. And now we can see there is an active alert in my system, and my desktop is in my building one group. So we should momentarily get the desktop pop up on my screen, and it'll have those emergency settings.
And if the
There it is.
activation order is now in effect due to a
So I
fire
can
in the
see
building,
it's that full
please
screen red
evacuate
takeover.
immediately. Please call an evacuation.
And I'm just going to click acknowledge to close that from my screen. And then I'm also going to go ahead and just hit cancel. But if I was sending out an alert for something like a system test, for example, I might not want to have the desktop take over the whole screen, say alert really big. That might scare some people if I'm just sending a system test out. So I'm going to walk through how I can create a new alert profile and a new group for a system test alert scenario. And I wanted to get started by setting up the system test desktop settings that I want to use. So to do that, I'm first going to go under this configure system section and click on the desktop tab. This is where I'm able to manage a bunch of my desktop settings. And if I scroll down to this desktop profiles section, this is where I can build out different desktop setting options. So for example, in my emergency alert profile, I'm using this default desktop profile. So those are the standard full screen takeovers that I would use for my emergencies. But I also have a bunch of other ones created. Like I have this one that's just a pink pop-up. You can get super creative and really customize these. But I'm going to go ahead and build out a new desktop profile, and I'm going to call it, let's say, desktop system test. And for the desktop settings, there are 3 different display modes that you can pick from. So you could pick a pop-up with any of these different templates that you can preview down here. I'm just going to click through a few to show you some examples, but as you can see, there are a ton of pop-up options for the desktops. We do even have some for routine announcements or reminders if you wanted to use Alertus for that. And then you could also pick a ticker that would just send a bar of text across the desktops. Or you could pick the classic, which is the full screen takeover, but you're able to come to the variables here and customize the settings. So for example, I could change the blinking text color or the border color. I could change the content background color. And any changes you make will update the preview here so you can see what it'll look like. You can also add images on the left and right hand side. So for example, if I don't want to just have the Alertus logo on the desktops, I could upload my own logo, or I could just use any other clip art or message or image that might relate to your message. But maybe for my example of sending a system test, maybe I don't want to actually take over the whole screen. Maybe I just want to send a ticker to take over a portion of the screen. And if I come to variables, maybe because it is a system test, instead of having a yellow ticker, maybe I'll make it something like a light green so that it won't alarm people too much when they see it coming onto their desktop. And then back on the general tab here, you do also have the option to specify audio settings for the desktops. So right now it's on no audio, but you could pick text to speech if you wanted to have the desktops read your alert message out loud, and you can determine how many times you'd like that to repeat. Or you could also pull in an audio file if you did want to have the desktops play like a beep or chime whenever they're activated. You could add in audio here. We have a bunch of default audio files that you can choose from, or you could also just upload or record custom audio as well. So the audio can be really helpful if you really do want to get people's attention during an emergency. But again, since this is just a system test, maybe I'll just leave it on no audio for now. So I think this looks good for my desktop settings for my test alert. So I'm going to go ahead and click add here so that I can save this desktop formatting on my system. And once you do create a new desktop profile, you'll see this pop up here that'll ask you if you want to go ahead and create a new alert service for it. So I'm going to go ahead and click that to say yes. And I'm just going to give it the same name. I'm going to call it desktop system test. And then I'm going to go ahead and click submit. So now it will add that alert service on my system. So if I come to my alert services page here, I can see I now have one called desktop system test, and I can take a look at the settings. So basically this just shows that whenever I use this desktop alert service in an activation, my desktops are going to have that system test desktop profile that we just created with the bar of green text going across the screen. And from this alert services page, you can also create other alert services for other types of devices that you want to activate. So I did also want to create a system test alert service for my text-to-speech speakers. I can show you here, I do have this default one that I use for my emergency alerts that has this chime playing before the alert message. But if I'm just sending out a system test and it's not a real emergency, I think I want to use a different pre-wave audio file so it'll play a different noise that'll be distinct from the noise I play before my emergency alerts. So I'm just going to click add alert service, and for my text-to-speech speakers, it'll be the IP text-to-speech alert service type. And I'm just going to name this one TTS system test. And then you could give it a description if you'd like. And then for my alert service settings, I am going to pick text to speech as the alert audio. So it's just going to read my test message out loud. But then here I can specify a pre-wave and post-wave audio file. So that would be the sound that would play before and after the alert message is read out loud. And for emergencies, like I showed, I normally play this chime audio file. I'm not sure if I'm sharing sound for you to be able to hear that, but you'll be able to preview what the audio sounds like. But maybe if it is just a test, I want to use a different noise. And I believe we have one called announcement. So I'm just going to play this announcement tone, which is just a different sounding beep that'll play before and after the audio. So I'm going to click that to apply it. I'll have the announcement play before my text, and maybe I'll have it play after the alert message as well. Maybe I'll just have the alert audio be read aloud twice. And then for the audio play count, that's going to be how many times it'll play my pre-wave audio, repeat my alert message twice, and then play the post-wave audio. Maybe just for a test, I just want it to go through all of that 2 times. And then you can also specify some other speech settings from here. So for example, if you notice your text-to-speech speakers are talking faster or slower than you'd like, you can change the speech rate from here. But I'm just going to leave it with medium. I think that looks good. So I'll go ahead and click add. So now I have that TTS test, system test alert service here that we just created with all of those settings. And the last type of device I want to include in my system test profile are alert beacons, since I have some of those. And the alert beacon alert service works a little bit differently. In here, it'll just say that when you want to set the alert beacon settings, you'll do that in the alert profile itself. So I don't have to set anything here. And now that I have all of those alert services, I'm going to put them together into a new alert profile for my system test. So I'm just going to add a new alert profile and I'm going to call it system test. And then I can pull in each of those alert services that I created. So I'll pull in my alert beacons, I'll pull in the desktop system test, and then I'll also pull in the text to speech system test that I just created. And then to specify my alert beacon settings, I'll click the plus sign here. I'm going to maybe have an initial duration, maybe the first, say 30 seconds, I'll have it on low volume just so that people can hear it, it can get their attention. And then I can also pick from any of these tones that I'd like to play. Maybe I'll keep with this announcement tone that I can preview with the speaker icon here. And then I can also specify the visual alert type. So that would just be the LED pattern the alert beacon would display. Maybe I'll pick the announcement glow as well. And then maybe after 30 seconds on low volume, for the rest of the alert, I'll just have it go down to silent, but maybe I will keep the LED going with the announcement glow. And then there are also some peripheral settings for your alert beacons. So if you do have any peripheral devices like an LED marquee or text-to-speech device connected to your alert beacons, then you can check the appropriate box here to also include them in the activation. And then there is also this third one down that says use alternate LED color, green. So if that's checked, then your alert beacons would blink green instead of the default red. So that's something I do want to use for this since it is just a system test. And once all of those settings look good, I'm going to go ahead and click add. So that will add this system test alert profile to my Alertus system. And now if I am activating from, say, Everbridge or Rave, when I'm looking through the alert profiles, now I'll be able to pick this system test profile if I want my devices to have those test settings. And now that we've created our alert profile, I did want to go next into the groups page here to create a new group. And again, these groups you're able to select from those third-party integrations or directly from the Alertus console, and this determines which devices you want to activate. So I already have a group for building 1 and building 2, so I thought we could add a new group together for building 3. And I'm just going to call this group building 3, and then you could give it a description if you'd like, but that's optional. And then from this devices tab, you are able to manually add new devices into the group if you just have a few devices that you want to add in manually. So maybe I'll add in my desktop, maybe I'll add in my text-to-speech speaker, and maybe I'll also add in my 2 alert beacons in building 3. I can select the devices to add them to the group. I could also remove devices from the group with the arrows if I needed to. But if you do have hundreds or thousands of devices, you're probably not going to want to do all of that manually. So there are also some other options that you can set up to automate those group assignments. And one option for that is in this Advanced tab. If you do have an Active Directory that you have connected with your Alertus server, then from this page, you would be able to map one of your Active Directory groups to an Alertus group, and that would let you target specific users or machines this way. And then you do also have the ability in this Alertus console to create what's called device assignment rules that can be used to update your group assignments automatically as well. Right now, I'm just going to go ahead and add this group. I don't actually have an LDAP integration set up, so I'm just going to get rid of those settings for now and click add. So now I see my building 3 group here, and I'll show you how I can create a device assignment rule to add devices into that group I just created. So from this device assignment rules page, you can see I have a few different rules set up. We have one for our security team group as an example that uses the device name as the search criteria. So because all of our computers in the security team, their name begins with AD_ST, we created a rule that says any device whose name begins with this, they're just going to be automatically put into that security team group. But you can also add device assignment rules based on a number of other criteria. The device fields that you can use include the device name, IP address, check-in variables, or also BSSID values. And since I'm creating a group for a specific building, I think I'm going to use IP address. So I'm going to name this rule my building 3 device assignment rule. And I'm going to say that this rule is going to assign devices to my building 3 group if their IP address falls within these specific ranges. And I do have the IP range for this building. I'm just going to paste the values in here, but you can also add additional IP ranges if needed. And these rules also allow for more dynamic group assignments. So say I'm working in building 3, my IP address is in this range, so I'm in this group, but then I go from building 3 to building 2. As soon as my device's IP address changes, the system will be able to detect that, and it'll reevaluate these device assignment rules to make sure I'm in the correct group for wherever my computer is currently located. But I am going to go ahead and add this device assignment rule. And then I can go back to the groups page and take another look at my building 3 group here. And if I go to the devices tab now, because I added in the IP range for that building and my computer is in that building, so its IP address is in that range, now it's grayed out and I can see if I hover over it that I've added my device to this group based on that device assignment rule that I created. So that's been done automatically for me. And if I did have any other computers in that building, I would now see them in this group as well. But now that we've created our group and our alert profile, I do want to go ahead and send out another activation so that we can take a look at those settings. So again, I'm just going to send from the custom activation page in the Alertus console, but you'll follow similar steps if you're activating from a third party like Everbridge or Rave. But the first step here, I'm just going to compose whatever message I'd like to send. I could just type something out, but I do have a general system test message saved that I can pull in. And maybe I'll just have my test run for 15 minutes. Maybe I'll pick a lower priority since it's just a test. And then when I get to this section, I'm able to directly pick the system test alert profile that we created. Again, I could be picking this from Everbridge or Rave or any system that lets me see these alert profiles. And now that I've selected it, it pulls in those alert services that we added to that profile. So I have our text-to-speech system test that uses the announcement tone before and after the alert is read out loud. I also have my desktops using that system test formatting that we created. And then I do also have my alert beacons. They have all the settings we set up just to have low volume initially, then go to silent with the announcement glow, and they're going to be blinking green. So it saved all of those settings that we specified. And then the last step here is choosing recipients. Maybe I'm sending out the system test to test devices in my building 3 group. So I can go ahead and pick that building 3 group to specify which of these devices I actually want to activate. And then I'll be able to hit continue and I can confirm that the settings look good. I can see my device was added to that building 3 group, so my desktop is going to activate. And then I'll go ahead and click send. So now we do have the active alert in the system, and then we should be able to see the ticker. There it is. So as you can see, since this is just a test, I didn't want to take over my whole desktop. So I just have this green ticker now going across with the message letting me know that it's a test. And I can go ahead and close that, and then I'll also go ahead and just cancel that test alert early. But I believe that was everything I wanted to share with you all today. So I will pass it back over to Brooke to share some resources in the chat and also the link to register for next week's Power Lunch.
Yes, absolutely. So, um, As Sarah mentioned, let me pull up those resources. We have a document around alert profiles specifically. So putting that in the chat now. And then we also have another document around building out device assignment rules. So how to build out specific groups within the Alertus console. So those are now currently in the chat. We did have some questions come in. I did answer some of them during Sarah's session. So I did want to confirm that yes, you can use Entra Active Directory as well if you set it up in middleware. And then we did have some questions around can you search by host name? And I believe we're talking about device assignment rules there. And naming is not the same thing as host name. So host name is going to be the URL that you go to up there at the top. But a naming convention is what the device is actually called. So thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you can take it over from here.
I was just going to show if you're not sure what your device names are, you can see them in this device status report. But the device assignment rule that I was using, or an example that I showed, was using the device name. So that's just whatever unique name you specify to identify the device. And you can also update device names if needed. If you go under Configure System to Alert Devices and you go to edit a device, like maybe I'll edit this alert beacon. This is also a spot where you can update the name if needed.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. All right, so we will stay on if there are any more questions for the next 3 minutes. We'll be here. In addition, we do have a webinar for next week. So let me pull up that link. Next week's Power Lunch is going to be focusing on our server upgrade coming out on Wednesday of next week. So winter 2026 is going to be live. And so for the webinar, we will be focusing on how to update your server as well as the new features in that winter release. So would love to see you there. The link to register is in the chat now. And as I mentioned, Sarah and I will stay on if there are any more questions. But if not, have a good rest of your day and weekend.
Mhm. Happy Friday.
Yes.